The kids are not OK. There is a huge problem with radical left-wing teachers in Britain. A Jewish MP was banned from visiting a school in his own constituency because of a campaign by some pro-Palestine teachers. Teachers threatened to turn up in kafirs, and a protest was organised. Now, the local branch of the National Education Union in Bristol celebrated this, and the local branch secretary reportedly led the charge, organising opposition via a WhatsApp group. Now, in my view, this is just straightforward racism. Look at this. Voting intention amongst teachers who are members of the National Education Union. Keep that on the screen. 37% vote Green, 29% Labour, 11% Lib Dem, 5% your party. I mean, good grief. Do you think that they are passing those views on to the kids? Because I do. Now, although he said he opposed violence when he was appointed as the head of the National Education Union, here is Daniel Kebede shouting "globalise the Intifada" before his appointment.
Let's do it for Palestine, Ramallah, West Bank, Gaza. It's about time we globalise the Intifada!
The head of the National Education Union. Well, the NEU wants to decolonise the curriculum, add mandatory black history lessons, and last week it was revealed that school children were told to play a computer game that told them that they were racist and could be referred to Prevent if they thought that immigrants were treated better than military veterans, which of course in many cases they literally are. In 2024, a teacher was investigated for posing with a placard that said the only good Tory is a dead Tory, the only good Lib Dem is a dead Lib Dem, so I suppose in that sense they've got range. But this happened at Labour Party conference. Remember this? This is from Labour Party conference in Liverpool.
Now, of course, outside the Labour Party conference, you get campaigners accosting you for all different causes, handing you leaflets, handing you stickers. But today, these campaigners are a little bit smaller than you might expect. School children from 6 local schools are coming out here to campaign for... What are you campaigning for?
Free school meals!
Yeah, they took the kids out of school so they could become left-wing political activists. Children in Tower Hamlets took part in a school protest for Palestine. They just left school, I think, went out, did a bit of a protest. One school was forced to cancel plans for a collective fast for Gaza day. One school had to drop plans for a Blue Nose Day, where they were going to turn the heating off to raise awareness about climate change. Again, do we always think this is coming from the kids, do we? Or could this be coming from, I don't know, the teachers? And once they graduate from school and go to university, that's when you have to be worried about radical Islamism. Arab countries are too afraid to send their kids here in case they get into a spot of jihad. Do we have an education system in Britain, or is it an indoctrination camp for future radical militant left-wingers?
We're living in a time of what feels like pretty significant social change, and it makes us question things that we've even taken for granted for decades. And one of those at the moment that people are wondering about is actually money. Is the money in your bank account safe? Should you be investing elsewhere? Are we looking at a potential global crash? What will it mean for your savings? Is there a way that you could be using your money that might be outside of government control even? Well, TallyMoney is potentially one solution. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by the CEO and founder of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. What is TallyMoney?
Well, at TallyMoney, you basically get gold you can spend. So we give people an individual account in their name, everyday account. They get a sort code, an account number. They use that account just like they would pounds from their bank, but it's milligrams of gold that we brand as Tally.
Okay. Why would you do that, though? What is the benefit to the customer instead of just having a normal pound sterling account?
Gold's performance against the pound is above 11% per annum over the last 25 years on average. But we still need money in our daily lives, and we have savings. We know that it's good common sense and prudent to save up for things, not just living credit. You know, whether it's a holiday or a rainy day, your retirement planning. You need to have money in your life, basically, that you can rely on, that's dependable, that nobody meddles with, that nobody can weaponise against you, which is another element of government control when it's the government currency, which we could talk about another time. And it should be pretty simple and straightforward. And that's what we deliver at Tally. And really, we just want people to feel safe and happy with their money. There was a time when the bigger your bank balance, the more confident you felt. now it's like, I need to do something with it. I can't leave it there. In Tally, you can.
Okay, brilliant. Cameron Parry from TallyMoney, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bev.
Let's get thoughts of my panel on this. GB News contributors Will Kingston and Connie Shaw, and as well political commentator, journalist Jonathan Liss. Right, Will, I'll start with you on this. So, yeah, I mean, should we all be very concerned about what's going on in our education system?
Yeah, we should. Like, you hear from people that woke is dead or woke is gone. Woke's not going anywhere until we fix the education system, because no kid is going to come out well adjusted after 12 years of the type of indoctrination that you've just pointed out. Now look, teachers have always been overwhelmingly left-wing. That is not new. What is new is that they think that their role has changed, where once they were there to teach kids how to think, they now have this sort of warped view that they are these moral preachers that need to indoctrinate children with whatever the particular cause of the left is of the day. At the moment it is Palestine. When they get back onto climate change, it'll be that, or the trans thing, or some woke monstrosity we haven't even heard of yet. And it is all because they suddenly think of themselves as preachers as opposed to educators.
Yeah. I mean, Connie, is it any surprise that we've had the likes of that Jewish MP who was essentially banned from going to school there, the teachers threatening to turn up in keffiyehs and all of that stuff?
No, not at all. This is just a normal occurrence in Britain today. And there will be people who say, oh, it wasn't because he was Jewish, it wasn't racism, it was because of his pro-Israel views. But there are very close ties between the NEC and the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign. I think people forget that the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign told the Met Police on October 7th, when Hamas was still massacring Israelis, that they wanted to have a rally the very next week. So there is absolutely no denial that this is anti-Semitic. And it's not the first time that the NEC has capitulated to Islamists. The Batley Grammar School teacher, the NEC, donated £3,000 to a charity that said that Batley Grammar School teacher had insulted Islam, and they named him as well, putting his life in so much danger. He's obviously still in hiding. We all know that. There's absolutely no denial that this is an anti-Semitic campaign against this MP, and I have no doubt that one of the reasons why we've only just heard about it, because I was looking through their Facebook, because it was reported that they'd celebrated it on Facebook. The Facebook post was from September last year. You know, one of the reasons why this probably hasn't been reported is because of the threat that this MP, I mean, have we not learned anything from David Amos? Like, parliamentarians could not even name, they would do anything to name what it was that killed David Amos. And it's bad enough that we already have Islamism running rife for our institutions, but now we have the useful idiots once again helping them out.
Yeah, well, so what do you make when you see some of those stats there? I don't know if I might be able to bring it back up again, but it's the voting persuasion of teachers that are members of the NEU, the National Education Union, and it was something like 37% Green, I think, wasn't it? There we go. 37% Green. I mean, some of those Green Party policies at the moment, I mean, essentially divest everything to do with Israel, legalise all drugs, abolish landlords, all of that. I mean, they are really radical, OK, in that sense, from a left-wing sense. And 37% of teachers would vote for them. And are we not supposed to believe that they are going to pass that on to the kids in some way?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, Patrick. First of all, I don't think that teachers are necessarily going to indoctrinate children with whatever belief they have, in the same way that I have plenty of right-wing teachers, and guess what? I didn't turn out to be a Tory. And also you can...
You went to a very nice school, though, didn't you? I'm not knocking that. I'm not knocking that at all. I went to a nice school. I'm just saying it's a little bit different, probably, than going to a local comprehensive.
I think it's quite insulting to teachers to suggest that they can't keep their own views separate from what they teach in the classroom. We have a national curriculum. They're expected to follow it. And also you can support the views of a party without supporting all the views. And that drug policy talked about, for example, is quite simplistic. The idea of that is to take people who use drugs out of the criminal justice system, because that hasn't worked. The war on drugs has not worked. Now, on the other point that we're talking about, I think it is really, really dangerous to conflate Judaism with Israel in general. I see, and I speak as a Jewish person, the only Jewish person on the panel, there is no evidence, from what I can gather, that this MP, Damien Egan, was targeted because he was Jewish. I completely disagree with the fact that he was blocked from going to that school, by the way. Completely outrageous. But that was because he was the vice chair of Labour Friends of Israel. And in that responsibility, and in that position, obviously, he has a certain set of views about Israel. And it's completely legitimate to oppose those views. Again, I reiterate, it was wrong to block him from coming to that school. The school says that they did that for his own safety, I think. But it was completely wrong. But it's not, and if you're going to accuse people of being racist, there has to be a much stronger foundation than that.
We agree on the second point that it was completely wrong. But I want to get back to your first point there. Number one, you said that, well, it is insulting to teaching as a profession that they can't leave their views at the door.
No, to say they can't.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you know, we provided several examples from where they obviously have been unable to leave their views at the door. And these examples are coming thick and fast day after day after day. But you made a very good point that they do have a curriculum to follow. And one of the big problems is over the last 20, 30 years, curriculums, not just in the UK, I might add, but across the Western world, have been changed to promote a black armband view of this country's history. You know, to say that colonialism is the great evil, to basically force kids to be ashamed of their history. And so this isn't just about teachers. It goes bigger than that to say that you need to fundamentally change the way that curriculums are structured in this country, particularly history curriculums, or else kids will continue to have this sort of belief.
Well, you're saying that, sorry, I don't understand this point whenever it's made. You should be able to teach children about what happened in the past. A lot of that was bad. I don't understand why people like you think that telling children that everything we did was absolutely brilliant, we have nothing to be ashamed of as a country, is the right way forward. Patriotism is not about lying about your country. It's about taking a full, holistic view of the things that went well and the things that went badly.
No one is saying that we shouldn't talk about the bad stuff as well as the good stuff. What I'm saying is the balance is quite clearly out of kilter at the moment, and it is pushed by particular teachers that are all too happy to say that the history was entirely bad.
I think, Connie, on one of the examples there was a guy called Daniel Kabidi, who is the head of the NEU, right? And he made those comments in that clip that we played before he was the head of the NEU.
And also before October 7th. That he made those comments in 2021. So this, you know, accusing Israel of genocide has been going on for so long, way before October 7th, when, Gaza's population has boomed over the last 20 years, but apparently Israel are the worst committers of genocide. I think also anti-Semitism is a shape-shifting ideology. I appreciate I'm not a Jewish person, but I can see how, you know, originally Jews were hated because they were poor, then they were hated because they were rich, they were hated because they didn't have a state, and then when they did, they were hated, and when they didn't defend themselves, they were hated, and now they do defend themselves and they're still hated. They used to be hated for their religion, then that wasn't acceptable, they were hated for their race, and now they're hated for having a country, and that's why it's anti-Zionism, and people say anti-Zionism instead of saying anti-Jewish. That's why.
So you're saying that Jews have to be Zionists? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that people. I think many.
They are different, then, aren't they? They are different.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, fine. So anti-Semitism is not the same as anti-Zionism.
It is a convenient euphemism for far too many anti-Semites.
You've just accepted that they are different things. So why can't you be anti-Zionism? But I'm myself not a Zionist. I am Jewish, and I absolutely no one can tell me that I'm not Jewish.
There are many people who say anti-Zionist. When it comes down to it, Islamists will not care whether you're a Zionist.
Just to get back on specifically to the issue of the education system in this country, are you telling me that you don't think there are any cases at all where teachers are basically indoctrinating children with
Patrick,
radical left?
That would be a ludicrous thing for me to assert. Of course, there might be isolated cases where teachers are not doing their job properly.
For the head of the National Education Union to attend Marxist conferences and to have previously shouted things like globalised intifada?
I don't look. I think the globalised intifada itself is a very poor slogan.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And do you think that it was appropriate for the local NEU in Bristol to have celebrated claims of victory, to have actually been instrumental in organising the local MP from not being able to go to that school?
I don't know how many more times I can say that it was wrong to exclude that MP from the school.
So this appears to be a cancer that we need to root out, doesn't it? And I wonder, I do want to know about this from people at home as well. You know, things like homeschooling, I believe, is on the rise, and I can understand why. You know, people shouldn't have to be afraid of when they send their children to school. You know, and I always use this example. So sorry to anyone listening or watching who is called Sandra, but that Sandra from the geography department is one day going to pull their son aside and say, actually, you might have been born into the the wrong body, or that actually Britain's history is all bad, or all of this stuff. We shouldn't have to live like that.
No, of course we shouldn't. But the NEU, quite frankly, is an utter disgrace. The fact of the matter is, if they're putting out these positions, they normalise those positions for teachers to then take into the classroom. They said last year that, and I think they passed this as a formal motion at their convention, that Reform is a radical right-wing fascist party. They are giving licence to teachers to take these positions and then bring them into the classroom.
And on that, in terms of the actual, I would argue, literal indoctrination, is that story that broke at the end of last week, Connie, which is about this computer game that children are playing, or told to play, and in that, there are several different scenarios. One of them is if you think that military veterans are treated worse than new immigrants, your character gets reported to prevent. So you're telling kids to do that in this school. I'm sorry, but what is that not just indoctrination?
Yes, I absolutely agree with you, Patrick. It couldn't be more obviously indoctrination. I think, as the youngest person on the panel, there's a bit of a misunderstanding about, I think clearly there is an adult-led campaign here. What some people may not understand if you haven't been to school, I left school 4 years ago now.
Rub it in.
It's not just my experience. I think it's quite similar across many schools in the country where the decisions made by teachers are led by the pupils. As I was very woke at school, I was part of those campaigns, and the teachers, oh my God, would sit there and listen. And a lot of the time I think that things that happened were good, but the way that they were so willing to basically take our lead. I mean, there was a story today in the Telegraph of Hinchingbrook High School in Huntingdon. The students have voted to rename a building that was named after a historical figure because it's now come to light that he was abusive to women, regardless of everything else that he may have done. Literally, I can't remember what he did. But there is political agendas are led by students, and the teachers just go along with it, often because they feel like, oh, this is the new thing. And it's not, when we say teachers have always been left-wing.
Well, young people have always been left-wing as well.
Yes, teachers have always been left-wing. What's different now is that the left is not just about economics and having big state and the welfare system. It's about actual ideologies that, because of the way that the secularisation has happened in the West, we have such a huge void that all of these ridiculous progressive ideas have filled it.
Young people have always been activists, always.
All right, a lively start. Brilliant start from the panel. Thank you very, very much. A spokesperson for Bristol Brunel Academy, which is that school that we mentioned earlier on about the banning of the Jewish MP, said, on the evening before Mr Egan's scheduled visit, we were made aware of plans for a public protest outside the school. We opted to postpone Mr Egan's visit to ensure everyone would continue to feel safe when entering and exiting school and to prevent any disruption to our students' learning. We've remained in contact with Mr Egan. An alternative date for his visit was arranged some time ago. We've also been in contact with the police and followed their advice. GB News did approach the National Education Union for comment, but they did not respond. They would deny, presumably, that they have capitulated to the Islamists.